woman in your life who will do what she must do to comfort you and calm you down and let you rest now. The woman in your life, she can rest so easily.
Hello everybody and welcome to Women's Spaces. My name is Elaine Holtz and I'm your host, and as always I am so excited about today's show. I have a special guest with me by the name of Susan Gorin, and we know Susan as a member of the City Council, but during this interview, the interview is going to be all about her up-and-coming election. She's running for Board of Supervisors for the 1st District, and I'm telling you, I am just so excited about this interview, I can't handle it. And it's very, very interesting because I got an email and somebody asked me, why do you do Women's Spaces? You know, this is strictly a volunteer position that I'm in here. I'm not getting paid. This is just from my heart to the community. And why do I like doing it? For the simple reason to be able to bring people, women like Susan, to the community so you can get to know her on a very personal and deep level. I mean, oftentimes when somebody is running for election, what do you get? You get a little card in the mail or you get a sound bite, but here we have about 25 minutes of just understanding and getting to know this individual who happens to be running for Board of Supervisors. So that's why I do Women's Spaces. Another reason that I do it is because I can bring information to the community. You know, I can give opinions, I can get people maybe to start thinking about things. And one of the things that just happened is somebody sent me this wonderful, wonderful poster, and it just really thrills me when I look at it. We would not let you oppress us in 1917, and we're not going to stand for it in 2012. That is a very, very deep statement. When you think about it, particularly my women viewers, it took us 100 years to get the vote. It took us even another 100 years before we can even get women to sit in positions of power, you know, where now we have women in Congress, they have women in the Senate, and women like Susan Gorin have the opportunity to run for the Board of Supervisors. When we get into the conversation, you're going to see that very, very few women have actually run and won in this community. You know, ladies, we got to get out and we've got to support our lady candidates. I'm telling you, when you look at the world today and what's going on, they would love to take our power. And I really encourage my women viewers particularly to watch the movie Iron Jawed Angel, because at that point you can understand how many votes it took for us to even get the vote. And I'm going to tell you a secret. We only got the vote by 1 vote. And when you see the story in Iron Jawed Angels, you will be amazed at the power of the mother. Because a mother said to her son, if you don't vote, you're not coming home. That's how we got the vote. You know, so if these guys had the opportunity, they would not have given us the vote. And you know, oftentimes, you know, because this is Women's Spaces, I don't generally bring men to the forefront. But I want to thank a gentleman from Petaluma by the name of Mark Alton. He wrote a wonderful letter to the editor. And I think as we come into this whole political season that we're in right now, we really need to be aware to pay attention to the candidate and not pay attention to some of the rhetoric that goes on and some of the name calling. I mean, we have to look at the issues, and we have a lot of issues that are happening these days. And you know something, as Women's Spaces, always the question I ask, is it good for the children? Some of the stuff that's being floated around is not good for the children. But I just want to state or make a few statements what Mark Alton said. And he said he's calling it a campaign guide. And one of the suggestions he made, and I think this is so important, and that is to respect and tolerate others' values and opinion, and refrain from undue judgments. And also another thing he says is very interesting. He says, start looking up in the dictionary the meaning of words, the meaning of communism, the meaning of socialism, the meaning of democracy. Why is that important? Because you've got people throwing words around. I call them trigger words. Like you hear the word socialism and you think, oh, or you hear the word communist and you go, oh, or you hear the word democracy and you think you confuse it with capitalism. I mean, there's so many, you have to look at the definitions. We are a democratic government. And that is so important that we maintain that. And when people start calling names like, oh, they're socialists, oh, they're communists, all they're trying to do is shock us or divert us from the real issues. And that's really important to be aware of it. And another thing, the last thing he says is it's okay to have your own religious beliefs, but don't start condemning other people, and don't start bringing in, oh, he's not going to be a good candidate because he's a whatever. A Catholic, a Christian. I mean, I don't know. They're just throwing all these words around that are just really upsetting me. If you're a true believer in democracy, it does not matter what religion you are. We live in the United States of America. Our forefathers separated religion out of all of the politics. And the reason they did that is because of the oppression that they escaped from, and they did not want to have it in this country. And we have to really pay attention to that. We have to pay attention to what people are saying. Well, anyway, that's a lot to chew on, a lot to think about, and that's the whole point of Women's Spaces, let's get ourselves thinking, if you know what I mean. Well, anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce my beautiful guest, Susan Gorin. Susan, welcome to Women's Spaces.
Elaine, it's always a pleasure for me to visit with you on yet another occasion.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. And I'd like my viewers just to know a little bit about you. Of course, as we can see, you're a beautiful woman, but you're also a mother, and you're also an activist. You've been active for years. I'm just looking at the background here. It says about Susan, a record of service. You've been on the Water Advisory Board. You've been the mayor. You've been on the Association of Bay Area Governments. You've been on the City Council, the City Planning, on and on and on. People can go on their website and they can know your whole story. But what I like to do is I like to give my guests an opportunity, anything that's in your heart, anything that you feel that you'd like my viewers to know about you.
Well, it's been my privilege and honor to be able to work in the community, and I've devoted my entire life essentially as a volunteer working with the community. My husband and I were lucky enough to move here 30 years ago with our two beautiful daughters, and they attended public school, and I was busy being a mother, but I was also a community volunteer working in the schools, volunteering in the schools, working as a Girl Scout leader, PTA president, and my husband and I ran a small company out of our home in addition to his work as an engineer at Hewlett-Packard, now Agilent. So I've just been very blessed to be able to give back to the community, working on a variety of nonprofit groups such as the League of Women Voters of Sonoma County, court-appointed special advocates, the Public Library Foundation, Safe Havens for Youth. And it was during that time after first of all, I went back to school. I'm the beneficiary of a great education system here in Sonoma County. I re-entered the Santa Rosa Junior College and graduated from Sonoma State with degrees in political science and economics. I went back to school because my husband and I ran a small company, and quite frankly, I needed some business skills, which I received. But then, I took my first political science course. Growing up in the 60s, I really resonated with community activism and the power of change. We can make a difference by coming together and working for change. So I graduated and volunteered in the school, and pretty soon a friend of mine, several friends of mine, suggested that I run for the Santa Rosa School Board. And I did my homework. I campaigned in 1996, and I was elected. And we talk about the right to vote. I won that election by 59 votes. So that was the start of my elected political career, and I'm sure we'll talk about other parts of my history and my biography after that.
Well, it's really interesting as a woman, because there's not that many women that have run in this community. As a woman, what were some of your challenges at the beginning of your political career? Just give us a few ideas.
I think women always have a disadvantage coming out of the community. They appeal to neighborhood advocates, people who are concerned about education and neighborhood services. And they don't necessarily have a long history of donating and volunteering for candidates who come out of the community, not like the business groups and perhaps the development groups that might have a vested financial interest in supporting candidates. So it is always a struggle for a neighborhood advocate to raise the kind of money to be competitive in a campaign. But I think for a local government office, women often have an advantage. I think the community trusts women, and they really value women who spend a lot of time with their families, with their children, volunteering in the community, but yet still questioning the experience and the education of that candidate. I simply can't be elected because I'm a woman. I would like people to vote for me and elect me because I am the best candidate for the job with the most experience.
I think that's kind of what, Mr. Alton is saying in this article, is to pay attention to the issues, pay attention to what the candidate's saying, try not to put those judgments, but this is a women's show, so it's always interesting, particularly I'm always trying to encourage my women viewers to become more involved. So thank you so much for sharing that. Well, I know there are many, many issues that are very close to your heart, but I know you have 3. Can you go over them and let us know why you feel they're so important?
As you said, there are many issues, but I tend to link them into 3 categories, and I call them the healthy E's, or the healthy 3. Healthy economy, first of all. We are struggling, and we've been through now a number of years of the greatest recession since the Great Depression, cutting budgets right and left, people out of work, losing their homes. They are desperate for jobs, any jobs, and that includes our young people as well, who are quite frankly frustrated that they're not able to get the employment that they need. A lot of extended families living in their home. I come from a family working in the steel industry, and my dad experienced a number of years of layoffs and dislocations, so I understand the value of a job. And quite frankly, I've had the experience as mayor and council member of creating some jobs and make it easier for businesses to locate in the city. So I bring that forward, as well as a number of ideas on new ways that we can create new businesses in the county that is the right fit. The second healthy is healthy environment. I believe, quite frankly, that there is no conflict between the economy and the environment. We need the best jobs that are right for our county and our neighborhoods, something that our neighborhoods can support and serve their needs without creating sprawl and undue impacts of traffic congestion. So always I'm going to be out there evaluating development proposals, modifying them, making them better, and being firm when someone needs to be firm and said it's too much impact on our neighborhoods and community. Finally, healthy community. Our community deserves the kind of services that we really need now more than ever. Access to health care for sure, human services. We're trying some upstream investments to try to reduce the number of our youth and young adults entering the criminal justice system, finding how we can meet the needs of our young people, our children, our infants and toddlers, and the infrastructure that is crumbling before our eyes. We have so many areas in the 1st District without sidewalks, curbs, gutters, our roads are crumbling, and we need to move our county budget into sustainability so that we can provide the services that we need without and being fair to the employees, and really looking at what is fair to employees, what is fair to taxpayers, and get a handle on some of our pension issues that we drastically need to address.
Boy, that's a mouthful. That is so much. I mean, when you think of it, and one of the things I admire about you is you always have this calm, gracious attitude, even when you're in the fire. I mean, when I'm even just listening to you, I just want to let you know that I have that thought. Well, you know, when you're talking, you know, you're coming from the city council to the board of supervisors. Just give us a quick little overview, you know, all these issues that you talk about. It seems like what happens when you get to the Board of Supervisors is you're more district orientated, where with the City Council you're more city orientated. How do you feel you can serve better by being on as a supervisor?
Well, I think your viewers will want to know that the county just recently redistricted the supervisorial boundaries based upon population. The census was taken a year or so ago, and so they needed to change some of the boundaries. The first district now includes about 51% of the first district is Santa Rosa, and the other 49% is unincorporated areas of about 37%, and the city of Sonoma about 11%. Most people in the incorporated cities of Sonoma and Santa Rosa don't have a very good understanding of how the Board of Supervisors affects them. And I explain it to the first district or anybody who's interested. For the most part, the services are provided at the city level in the incorporated cities: streets, streetlights, police services, fire services, budgeting and development approvals. But the other 37% lie outside of those incorporated areas, and the Board of Supervisors is their first level of government. They want to know that they can count on the supervisor to represent their interests when they have problems. It was very exciting for me as council member and mayor of Santa Rosa to be able to work with neighborhood groups to connect them to the decision-making process, helping them feel like they have a voice in government, and giving them a really good understanding of what the city does and what the county does.
You know, it's interesting that you bring that up, because myself, I claim ignorance. I never recognized until the last year, actually the last year and a half, because I was appointed to the Community Advisory Board, and suddenly I realized, oh my goodness, how important local politics is. I'm beginning to think that local representation is even more important than federal representation. Even though they work hand in hand, if you don't have your local peoples working with you, it's very difficult to get anything done on a city level or in a district level. So I really thank you for going into that, because I think it's very important that people recognize that. You know, a lot of people stay home for your community elections, and these are the most important elections. Everybody should be voting because their interests. Go ahead.
And I just want to say that that is the reason why I love serving in local government. I have the ability to reach out, have conversations, telephone conversations, be a guest on your show, and really understand the issues that are bothering most folks in the community. Several people tried to encourage me to run for office in Sacramento. I was not interested in commuting to Sacramento and being part of that, as important as it is, because I love the local connection. And you're right, it is increasingly more difficult now for people to get the information that they need to understand who the candidates are at the local level and to make an informed decision while they're voting. I've had a lifelong membership in the League of Women Voters to try to make it as easy as possible for people to access information about candidates and positions, but it's challenging.
Oh, there's just so much to cover. It's just amazing. Well, you know, the show moves very quickly, and there's one question that is burning and that I must ask you, and that is, there's always this struggle between the economy and the environment, back and forth. I mean, I hear it all the time. You see it in the papers. It's always a discussion. How is it that you would handle that? I mean, how do you see it? Do you see it as a conflict? And if there is a conflict, how would you personally handle it?
I don't see a conflict. In fact, it's one of the reasons why I am running, because my experience serving on the Santa Rosa City Council and Mayor, School Board, and now our regional government experience leads me to believe that Sonoma County is so far ahead of many other counties in thinking about sustainability and how to build a sustainable economy in this county. We're the leaders in the United States on this. We are fortunate. Every city in Sonoma County has an urban growth boundary, and that means that we try to keep as much of the high density development within that boundary. But there are development pressures in the county as well. There are a number of strategies to really evaluate what kind of industries are appropriate for both the cities and the county. But I look at what I could do as a supervisor is to work with all of the city councils, and in fact I've been endorsed by members of all of the city councils in Sonoma County to look at what kind of businesses are appropriate. And in fact the Board of Supervisors have had an economic development report that outlines some strategies, which is a great base to build upon. But specifically for the 1st District, it is so beautiful to ride our bikes or walk or drive through the Valley of the Moon, but we do know that wineries occupy a great deal of the valley floor. We are incredible beneficiaries of that wonderful wine and the great boost that it gives our economy, but we need to move forward on other agricultural production as well. 80% of our farms and ranches in Sonoma County are less than 20 acres. We could be doing more to boost and market our agricultural production of crops other than simply wine grapes, and look at the industries serving those, because we have so many people coming to Sonoma County to taste some wine and to enjoy the ambiance in our beautiful cities. And they come here for the food as well, the food festivals. So we have a lot of exciting things moving forward on green industries, green businesses, and moving us closer to sustainability and approaching the future with joy and preparedness.
You know, that's one thing I know about you, Susan, that's so important, the word sustainability, sustaining what we have, the beauty and the culture, and at the same time building the economy so we have, I mean, it sounds like it's a real balance act for you. Well, we're coming to the end of our show, and it goes by very, very quickly. 27 minutes just moved. But I'd like you to be my guest and just look at the camera here. Anything that you feel comfortable. You know, I know that you have so many other things that we could talk about. But I really would like to encourage you to talk to our women viewers. You know, maybe give a little idea of how they also can get involved, just like yourself. Just be my guest on this camera here.
Well, Elaine, I'm glad that you brought up women's history at the beginning of this show, because in fact March is National Women's History Month, and in fact the Women's History Project started in Sonoma County, and I've been almost a lifelong member of the History Project. I want to let the viewers know that throughout the long history of the Board of Supervisors, there have been only 5 women elected as supervisors. I think it's important to elect me as another woman serving in the grand tradition. Our first supervisor was Helen Rudy. We're so thrilled that she is still a part of our lives. Want to honor her service both on the Santa Rosa School Board and the Board of Supervisors this month, and recognize that women add a little different dimension to the county policy discussions, not necessarily worse or better, just a little different. And I want to be part of that. And I offer my experience as a mother, active community volunteer, school board member, city council member, former planning commissioner, Board of Public Utilities member, as the incredible experience that needs to be brought to the Board of Supervisors. The board makes tough decisions that affect the entire county, not just the 1st District. I'm ready to hit the ground running, but I will need your support. There are so many people who have endorsed me and are supporting me. I would encourage you to go on my campaign website, www.susangorin.com, to learn a little bit more about me and the kind of people who are supporting my campaign. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Susan. That was absolutely beautiful. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on Women's Spaces, and I want to wish you all the success that I can wish you. Anyway, wow, what a great interview. You know, when you start thinking about it, you know, at the beginning of the show we were talking about women, and we were talking about, you know, you're not going to get us down in 212. But also just the idea of having women in our community that are not only so articulate and so involved, but really have a deep understanding of what the community needs. I mean, oftentimes, and another thing is like to be able to meet on one-on-one. I mean, there's just nothing like it. That's what I love about the Board of Supervisors elections, because they're called district elections. And that means everyone in your district who is running for supervisor has to get to know you, because you're voting for your district. It's not like you're voting for the whole city, so it's really, really, really important. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting when Susan was talking, I'm going to identify myself here. One of the things that was really impressive to me when Susan was talking was the whole idea of the balance between the economy and the environment. I mean, that is so important, folks, that when we're looking at an election, we really pay attention to that. Why do I say that? You know, at the end of the show, I always try to encourage, particularly my women, you know, viewers, to get off their duff and do something for the future, do something for the children. Well, when you're looking at the economy and you're looking at the environment, you're really looking at the future. And you know, my birthday is coming up. I'm going to be 72 years old. I don't know how long my future is, but I do have a granddaughter who's going to be 21 years old, and I do have a grandson who's going to be 24. So I know they're going to be here in the future. So we really have to pay attention to those types of issues. And at the same time, when we're looking at the economy, we have to look at the idea of sustainability, that how do we incorporate? You know, you don't want to bring something into the community that's going to destroy the environment. You have to start looking at those things. Even though maybe one thing may create 25 jobs and another thing may only create 20, in the long run, when you're looking at sustainability, you know, which is really the better call? So there's a lot to think about this election, and I encourage my women voters and all voters, get out there and make your voice heard. And the way your voice is heard by putting your vote on that little piece of paper that we all go into the booth to look at and to decide who we want to represent us. Anyway, this has been a marvelous program, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for watching. This is Elaine Holtz with Women's Spaces saying so long, and I will see you the next time.
The woman in your life will do what she must do to comfort you and calm you down and let you rest now. The woman in your life, she can rest so easily. She knows everything you do because the woman in your life is you. In your life knows simply what is true. She knows the simple way